and Salam Chatra. My name is NAVEEN and I will be speaking on the concept and historical development of secular humanism. Secular is the English word derived from the Latin word saeculum, which means this present age or this world of change, as opposed to the eternal religious world. And according to the Humanist Manifestos 1 and 2, humanism is a philosophical, religious, and moral point of view. An article by John W. Whitehead and John Conlon defines secular humanism as a religion whose doctrine regards man as the source of all knowledge. Therefore, secular humanism is the life stance that specifically rejects religious teachings and anything pseudoscientific from being the basis of morality and decision-making. Moving on to the historical development. According to the American Humanist Association, secular humanism is the product of 18th century rationalism during the Age of Enlightenment and 19th century free thought. By the end of the 19th century, it was well established. 2 humanist manifestos were published in the years 1933 and 1973 respectively. The modern founder of secular humanism is Paul Kurtz, who is regarded the father of secular humanism. He contributed greatly in the 1900s and founded many organizations to promote this ideology. As a member of the American Humanist Association, he contributed to both manifestos, the Humanist in 1933 and later the Second Humanist Manifesto in 1973. Other influential secular humanists across history are such as Charles Darwin, who wrote the book The Origin of Species in 1859, which is a theory of evolution offering worldviews without God. Karl Marx, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Sigmund Freud individually emphasized the importance of education and advocated for non-religious secular education. Some factors for the development of secular humanism is the decline in influence and authority of the church when man shifted focus from religion to himself and the material world. Secondly, the increase in curiosity for non-religious explanations behind human suffering and life experiences. Thirdly, the growth of the market economy that caused even religious authorities to focus more on the economy, more than religious restrictions. Another factor is the increase in rationalism and scientific investigation that led to the belief that divine revelations were impractical and impossible. These factors led to the decrease in religious influence, an increase in reasoning and scientific proof, thus the development of this ideology. Thank you.
Now, moving on to the characteristic and principle of secular humanism. And the first characteristic of secular humanism is disenchantment of nature. Secular humanism rejects any belief in a realm or entities that exist beyond the scope of everyday experience. It implies removing nature's religious undertones, which means that they do not believe that nature is a divine being. Secularism holds that something needs to be proven scientifically and stated that nature has no relationship or connection to God. And this fact proves that this characteristic is inconsistent with universal ethics and Islamic worldview. Moreover, the secularization of politics is the second attribute of secular humanism, which signifies that no one rules by divine authority. The belief that every culture and institution, including religion and philosophy, will change over time. Therefore, they believe the future is open to change and that humans have the freedom to participate in the evolutionary process. In fact, secularism celebrates the liberation of individuals from traditional controls imposed by family, state, and religion, which allowing each of them to increasingly choose his or her own condition of life. And the last characteristic of secular humanism is the consecration of values, which include the elimination of deeply rooted values. It implies that the divine will isn't directly expressed any longer. Therefore, man is free to develop and immerse himself in the evolutionary process. This differs from so-called common ethics, in which good and wrong are predetermined and attributed to divine authority. Here, secularism lives its life according to its own term and leads to entire destruction of human value. Moving on to the principle of secular humanism, the first principle is separation of religious institution from state as well as public realm, in which religion can participate but do not dominate. Secularism founded on the separation of church and state, which it ensures that religious organizations do not interfere with state activities and that the state does not interfere with religious affairs. And the second principle is the freedom to practice one faith or to change it or not have one according to one's own preference. Secularism aims to maintain absolute freedom of religion and other belief as well as the right to express religious belief. And the last principle is equality. The belief that the laws already in place, such as human rights legislation, should be sufficient to protect believers against violence and prejudice. And they also believe that before the law and parliament, all citizens are equal. Now I will pass the floor to Sister Narnia to explain more about secular humanism.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ZUBAIDAH binti MIRZA SHAH, and I will be presenting the impact of secular humanism to others. First is the impact in social and cultural aspects. Nowadays, media is largely controlled by those with secular values, and the role of religion is greatly diminished in pop culture. This influences the general public to forget their own traditional and religious values to embrace this secular culture. An example is American culture, where findings from a 2019 survey found that roughly 1 in 5 or 22% of young adults report that they were not raised with any religion, compared to only 3% of the previous generations. This shows that secular humanism causes a decline in religion among society. The second aspect is the impact in education, which is that the importance of God is eliminated almost completely from public education. This is because under secular humanism, the objective of seeking knowledge is only a worldly purpose and is devoid of any spiritual element. Unfortunately, this extreme secular humanism in schools can lead to religious intolerance. This can be seen in the examples in France, which practices the concept of laïcité or secularism in their public educational system. It is weaponized to restrict religious freedom, especially for the Muslim community, with many French people questioning if wearing hijabs to school are compatible with French principles, as schools are considered a neutral and religion-free zone. France actually passed a law in 2004 banning all clothing displaying religious worship in school, calling it a threat to public order. This prohibition resulted in many cases of Muslim schoolgirls being unfairly expelled or removed from class. Most notably was the case of 15-year-old Muslim schoolgirl Sarah, who was removed from class as administrators saw her long black skirt as a religious symbol. The impact in the political aspect. Secularist politicians believe that religion should not interfere with or be integrated into the public affairs of a society and deny Islam as a comprehensive code of life. This can be seen in the United States, which practices a secular government. In practice, lawmakers do not take religion into consideration at all. Because of this, the American government has passed many legislations that contradict religious beliefs. For example, homosexual marriage and abortion are legalized in America. And that's all for aspects. I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum. So moving on to the strengths and shortcomings in relation to Islamic worldview. First strength, which is allows for religious freedom. Secularism was introduced for the sake of historical necessity and not to eradicate religion. It began to exist not with the intention of opposing the existence of God. Although secular humanism is non-religious, one of their principles is the freedom to practice one's faith or to change it or not have one. In Islam, there are many verses in the Quran that mandate the freedom of religion. For example, in Al-Baqarah verse 256, Allah says to the effect that there be no compulsion in religion. The right way is indeed clearly distinct from error. This verse implies that no one is compelled to embrace Islam. Thus, by right, in a secular humanist society, Muslims will be free to practice Islam in a personal sense. So next, the second strength of secularism is equality. Another principle is equality, so that our religious beliefs or lack of them doesn't put any of us at an advantage or disadvantage. In Islam, a concept of shumuliyah means complete and perfect covering in life, in this world and in the hereafter. And Islam meant for all mankind, no matter who you are, regardless of race, etc. and etc. Therefore, by right, in a secular humanist society, Muslims have no problem against the principle of equality of secularism, because Islam is a comprehensive religion or system of life, or also called shumul. Islam is a complete system of life that is every rule is related to all aspects and areas of human life. So moving on to shortcomings of secularism. For the first shortcoming, which is political power is increasingly undemocratic. Power held by undemocratic leaders, leaving to monopolize wealth for their cronies, holding power as a personal absolute right and not the trust of God. Refusing to practice and implement governance according to Islamic teachings will certainly cause chaos in the goals and direction of a country. Next, lack of moral values. Religion makes sense of morality by teaching and supporting the idea that morality is not absurd or for naught. One hadith narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned that we have come back from smaller jihad to a greater jihad. They asked, what is meant by the greater jihad? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, the determination of a slave fighting his. And then we could say that secular humanism don't have moral values because it is clearly according to human desire, and therefore a society is more likely to engage with wrongdoing.
Our presentation can be summarized in this mind map. The first branch of the mind map is the concept of secular humanism, which is the liberation of man from religious and metaphysical tutelage and the turning of his attention away from other worlds and towards this one. As for the historical development, there are many notable contributors to secular humanism. The second branch of the mind map are the characteristics, which includes the disenchantment of nature, the desacralization of politics, and the deconsecration of values. These principles are the separation of religion and state, freedom and equality. The third branch is the impact of secular humanism, which can be seen today in culture and society, our educational system, and especially in politics, with many examples in the Western world, including France and the United States. Lastly is its strengths, which is it allows for religious freedom and promotes equality. However, its shortcomings are that political powers are increasingly undemocratic and there is a lack of moral values. And that is all from us. Moving on, we would like to share a short clip from a YouTube video that is very informative to help everyone understand the concept of secular humanism even more.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
This is why abortion is still legal. Secularism. Secular humanism is the popular religion of our day. It's what's taught in our schools and propagated in the media. It says that man is the measure of all things. The universe is closed. There's no God, only time plus matter plus chance. Man determines his own reality, future, and ethics without reference to God. In a chaotic, ever-changing universe, science and reason rule the day. Few can doubt the influence of this ideology on the culture over the past 100 years. It's captured academia, politics, and even our pulpits. Autonomy is its chief virtue. Like the serpent in the garden, its central tenet is, you decide good and evil for yourself.
Scenario 1 is regarding the Muslim practice of fasting during Ramadan. Rania is a Muslim who lives in America. As a Muslim, she is fasting during the month of Ramadan. Her colleague TESYIA is shocked when Rania tells her that she is fasting, as TESYIA is a secular humanist and has never been exposed to Islam before. Thus, TESYIA asks why Rania is fasting, despite being hungry. This is how their conversation goes.
I'm so thirsty.
Oh, do you want some?
No, it's okay. It's Ramadan. I'm fasting.
Oh, why are you fasting? Aren't you thirsty?
Well, I'm a Muslim, so it's one of my obligations to fast.
I see. I'm a secular humanist, so I don't get that. As a secular humanist, my moral foundations and decision-making is based only on personal reasoning and scientific proof, as well as naturalistic considerations. I only believe in this world and not in any other world, nor the consequences of my actions anywhere else besides in this world.
As a Muslim, my moral foundation is based in the tenets of Islam as derived from the divine revelations from Allah. This differs greatly from secular humanism as our beliefs go far beyond just the physical world.
I see. But applying basic reasoning and rationale, food and water is essential as a source of energy for us to carry out our various daily tasks. When hunger is unbearable and you can no longer focus and function optimally, it is irrational to ignore it. Many studies have also proven that hunger majorly impacts your ability to make decisions and concentrate. This will affect one's quality of work as well as people's trust in them.
At face value, it may seem unreasonable to deny yourself food and drink when you're hungry and thirsty. It is true that hunger serves a purpose, reminding us to nourish our bodies. However, it is merely a material feeling. Muslims must look beyond that. Allah has said to us in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, O you believers, it is prescribed to you fasting as it was prescribed to those before you, so that you may develop God consciousness.
We do not have proof of how true these religious commands and consequences are. We have never seen God. Thus, relying only on what we know in this real world, we need food to sustain. Therefore, fasting, even when you are hungry and when you cannot function optimally, is not practical, nor is it healthy.
As a Muslim, I believe that our Creator, Allah, knows what is best for us. Everything I do in the physical world is merely stepping stones for the success in the hereafter. It is my faith and belief in Al-Akhirah that makes the feeling of hunger insignificant.
Well, as a secular humanist, I do not know or believe in any other world besides this one. My actions are judged only in this world, and we believe in the motto that no deity will save us, we must save ourselves. However, I now understand how Muslims are so strong-willed and can persevere despite the obstacles. It is because you don't see yourself as merely a human being, but you see yourself as the servant of your God, and you trust the words of your Creator and Prophet.
Mine is a Muslim while Amirul is a secular humanist. Both of them are the first children in their families to ever attend university. They both balance a part-time job and their studies and face extreme pressure to perform well. Unfortunately, they both failed an English test. This is how they each dealt with this hardship.
Ara, Assalamualaikum. How are you?
I'm doing good so far.
Our result for our final exam last semester have been released, is it?
Oh, really?
Have you checked it?
Oh, not yet.
Same with me. I think we can check it together.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Then, both of them checked their result from MAZLAN.
Oh no, I failed this subject. one of my favorite subjects, to be honest. You know, I think this all my fault.
Oh really? Why do you think like that?
I think it's because despite being regretful or disappointed, I think my effort is not enough. Even though I've put 110% in order to get A and pass that subject, I think that is something that lack of and need to be fixed at.
Well, as a Muslim, I believe that this is a test from Allah to evaluate you whether you can handle His study very well or not during the difficult time. And I believe that everything that has happened to you has a hikmah, or what I can say is you need to tawakal.
You know what? I've sacrificed a lot, but maybe it is not enough. Although I do not understand why, because I've worked so hard and I do not rely on anything beyond what I know for an explanation. But from now on, I think I should change my personality.
Yes, you should. As Allah stated in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 286, He does not burden anyone in which they are unable physically or mentally to endure it. So regardless of the situation, Allah is choosing to test you because He knows how strong you are to get through it. So believe in that strength that Allah gives you, because after the storm comes a rainbow.
As a secular humanist, my foundation of belief and moral decision making is that no deity will save us, but we must save ourselves. And I don't blame anyone else, and I don't think any unseen or unknown thing has any power over my life besides me. However, now I understand why Muslims are so strong-willed and can persevere regardless of the obstacles. It's because you don't see yourself as a man, but you see yourself as a servant of your God, and you trust the words of your God and your Prophet.